My name is Georgia, and today is my 75th birthday. My son Michael arranged a party at my Connecticut home, the one I built with my late husband Frank. Everything seemed perfect until my daughter-in-law, Amanda, stood up champagne glass in hand. To the old lady heading to a nursing home soon, she toasted. The room fell silent before awkward laughter erupted. Michael, my own son, laughed along. I kept my composure, but inside my heart was breaking. I never expected this betrayal from my own family. Before I continue my story, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and if you've ever experienced family betrayal. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happened next. I wasn't always 75. Once I was a vibrant businesswoman who built a considerable fortune alongside my husband Frank. We started with nothing but determination and grew our real estate development company into something remarkable. Frank and I shared 45 wonderful years together before cancer took him 5 years ago. The last words he whispered to me were about protecting myself and our legacy. Our home in Connecticut is a beautiful 6,500 square foot house sitting on 3 acres of manicured gardens. Frank designed it himself, incorporating all the little details we dreamed about during those early struggling years. It became our sanctuary, the place where we built our life together. Michael is our only child. For most of his life, we were incredibly close. He would come to me with everything, his triumphs and his struggles. I was his confidant and his biggest supporter. That changed 7 years ago when he met Amanda. At first, she seemed wonderful, a sweet, attentive woman who made my son happy. Frank had his reservations, though he tried to hide them for Michael's sake. They married 5 years ago, coincidentally, just 2 months after Frank's passing. It was a difficult time for me, losing my husband, and then watching my son start his new life. I tried to be supportive despite my grief. The wedding was lavish, mostly paid for by me, though Amanda told everyone her parents had contributed significantly, which wasn't true. Over time, Amanda's true nature began to surface. The sweet, considerate daughter-in-law slowly transformed into someone calculating and cold, especially when Michael wasn't around to witness it. She would make snide comments about the house being too big for just one person, or how I should consider downsizing for my own safety. Before Frank died, he warned me. "Georgia," he said, "be careful with Amanda. I see how she looks at what we've built. Not as family legacy, but as something to acquire." I dismissed his concerns, then believing he was being overprotective. How I wish I had listened more carefully. My grandchildren are my greatest joy. Thomas and Sophie are 10-year-old twins with Frank's eyes and curious minds. I adore them completely and have set up college funds for each of them. Amanda has gradually limited my time with them, claiming I tire too easily or that my health is too fragile for extended visits. Speaking of health, I had a minor episode 3 months ago, about a vertigo that Amanda transformed into a full-blown medical crisis. She took that opportunity to begin talking about assisted living facilities and nursing homes claiming she was just concerned about my well-being. My doctor gave me a clean bill of health, but Amanda conveniently forgot to mention that part when discussing my condition with family members. For my 75th birthday, Amanda suggested hosting the celebration at their house. She wanted to take care of everything, she said, but I insisted on having everyone at my home. This was my milestone, and I wanted to celebrate it in the house that held all my memories with Frank. Amanda reluctantly agreed, but insisted on handling all the arrangements. I allowed her that, not realizing it was setting the stage for what would become one of the most humiliating moments of my life. I woke up on my birthday feeling excited about having everyone together. Despite Amanda's controlling nature, I was determined to enjoy this milestone. I spent the morning getting ready, putting on my favorite blue dress, the one Frank always said brought out the color in my eyes. I arranged fresh flowers from my garden throughout the house, something Amanda had specifically said not to do, because of potential allergies, though no one in our family has any. By 4 o'clock, guests began arriving. Michael came first with Amanda and the twins. Sophie ran to me immediately, throwing her small arms around my waist, while Thomas hung back, giving me a shy smile. I noticed he was clutching a handmade card that Amanda quickly took and placed with the other gifts, saying he could give it to me later. My sister Patricia arrived with her husband John. We've always been close, and she knows me better than anyone since Frank passed. She immediately sensed my tension and gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. My brother William and his wife Susan flew in from Arizona, a gesture that touched me deeply. Several friends from my business days also joined, making the gathering about 20 people in total. Initially, the atmosphere seemed pleasant. Everyone was mingling, enjoying the appetizers I had prepared, despite Amanda telling everyone she had arranged the catering. I overheard her in the kitchen complaining to Michael about the old lady's stubbornness and how I wouldn't let her handle things properly. Michael simply nodded without defending me a pattern I'd noticed developing over the years. Dinner was served at 6, an elaborate spread I had helped prepare with my housekeeper. Maria, though Amanda took credit for organizing it all. The conversation flowed around the table, with people asking about my recent activities. I mentioned the watercolor class I had started taking and my volunteer work at the local library. Amanda interjected with comments like, "It's so important for seniors to stay active while they still can," and "We worry about her driving to these activities at her age." Michael remained silent during these exchanges, focusing intently on his food. I caught Patricia's eye across the table, her expression clearly showing disapproval at Amanda's behavior. William, always the peacemaker, tried steering the conversation toward happy memories, asking me to share stories about Frank and our early years together. As the main course concluded, I noticed other family members exchanging uncomfortable glances whenever Amanda spoke. Susan Williams' wife attempted to highlight my continued independence, mentioning how impressed she was with my involvement in the hospital fundraising committee. Amanda quickly countered with concerns about me overextending myself, adding that it might be time to consider scaling back my responsibilities. Throughout dinner, I maintained my composure, determined not to let Amanda's subtle digs ruin my special day. The twins had been seated away from me at the children's table Amanda had insisted on setting up, despite my preference to have them near me. I noticed Sophie trying to make her way to my side several times, only to be redirected by Amanda with whispered instructions I couldn't hear. After dinner, Maria brought out the birthday cake, a beautiful creation from my favorite bakery downtown. The lights dimmed as everyone began singing Happy Birthday. For a moment, surrounded by familiar faces, illuminated by candle glow, I felt genuinely happy. That feeling was short-lived. As the song ended, and before I could blow out the candles, Amanda stood up, champagne glass in hand. She tapped it gently with a spoon, commanding everyone's attention. Her smile seemed plastered on as she began what I expected to be a typical birthday toast. Everyone, if I could have your attention, Amanda began, her voice carrying across the now silent room. We're here to celebrate Georgia turning 75 years young today. She paused, looking around the table with what appeared to be affection, though her eyes remained cold. I'd like to propose a toast to the old lady who's heading to a nursing home soon. The silence that followed was deafening. I sat, frozen champagne glass halfway to my lips, unable to believe what I had just heard. Then came a few uncomfortable chuckles, followed by more pronounced laughter. Michael, my own son, was laughing too, though his eyes wouldn't meet mine. In that moment, I felt as though I'd been physically struck. The room seemed to tilt slightly as the full impact of the humiliation washed over me. 5 decades of building a business, raising a son, contributing to my community. And this was how my family saw me, a punchline about being discarded. My sister Patricia's voice cut through the laughter. That's completely inappropriate, Amanda. She was the only one who seemed genuinely outraged. I caught William's uncomfortable expression as he shifted in his seat, clearly uncertain how to respond. Amanda's laugh tinkled like breaking glass. Oh, come on. I'm just joking. We all know Georgia will need more care soon. That big old house is becoming such a burden. She turned to me with false concern. We've been researching some really lovely retirement communities, haven't we? Michael nodded, still avoiding my gaze. They have great activities, Mom. You wouldn't have to worry about maintaining this place anymore. I wanted to scream that this house wasn't a burden, but my home filled with 45 years of memories with Frank. Instead, I carefully folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate. Please, excuse me for a moment, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, as I stood and walked toward the bathroom. Once alone, I stared at my reflection in the mirror. I saw the lines on my face earned through years of laughter and tears. But I also saw Frank's wife, a successful businesswoman, a mother, a grandmother, not someone to be discarded and forgotten. In that moment, looking into my own eyes, I made a decision. I would not allow them to diminish me or control my future, not without a fight. I returned to the party with my head held high, determined not to let Amanda see how deeply she had hurt me. The cake had been served in my absence, another small slight. That didn't go unnoticed by Patricia. She immediately came to my side, her protective instincts in full force. As the evening progressed, guests began making their excuses and departing. Each goodbye felt weighted with awkwardness, their eyes avoiding mine, all filled with unwanted pity. My old friend Martha squeezed my hand and whispered, "You deserve better than that, Georgia. Call me tomorrow." Patricia and John were the last to leave. Or rather, Patricia insisted John take a taxi back to their hotel while she stayed behind. Once everyone else had gone, she exploded. "How dare they treat you like that? That woman is absolutely toxic, and Michael is spineless for not standing up for you." I sank into Frank's old armchair, suddenly feeling every one of my 75 years. "This isn't the first time, Patty," I admitted. "It's just the first time they've been so public about it." I began sharing incidents I'd previously kept to myself. How Amanda had started inquiring about my will shortly after Frank's funeral. The time I overheard her telling Michael they needed to convince me to add both their names to my bank accounts for safekeeping. The mysterious disappearance of some of Frank's watches and my mother's jewelry, which Amanda suggested I had misplaced due to age. "Georgia, this is elder abuse," Patricia said firmly. "Financial abuse at minimum. They're trying to manipulate you into giving up control of your assets." I recalled an incident from 3 months earlier when I was reviewing some investment documents. Amanda had walked in immediately, showing unusual interest. That evening, I overheard her telling Michael they were waiting too long and needed to act before I got any crazy ideas about changing my will. "You need to protect yourself," Patricia urged. "Frank would be heartbroken to see Michael treating you this way, but he'd want you to stand up for yourself." After Patricia left with a promise to call me the next day, I slowly walked through my empty house, turning off lights and straightening cushions. The silence felt heavy with betrayal. In our bedroom, I opened the closet and ran my fingers along Frank's suits that I still couldn't bear to part with. "What would you do, Frank?" I whispered to the empty room. I sat on our bed and pulled out the photo album from my nightstand. Frank's smiling face looked back at me from countless memories. Halfway through, I remembered something and reached for the locked drawer where Frank kept important documents. Inside was a folder labeled "Just in Case" with a letter addressed to me in Frank's handwriting. I'd read it after his death, but had forgotten some of the details. It contained instructions about our finances, contacts for our attorneys, and advice about protecting our assets. Frank had been more perceptive than I gave him credit for. The last paragraph read, "If anyone, even Michael, tries to take advantage of you, remember that you're Georgia Williams, who built an empire from nothing. Don't let anyone take your power. I love you too much to see you diminished." With tears streaming down my face, I reached for my phone and made several notes for Monday morning meetings with Harold, our attorney, and Jessica, our financial advisor. By the time I fell asleep, a plan was already forming in my mind. Monday morning found me in Harold Barnes's office promptly at 9. Harold had been our attorney for over 30 years and was one of the few people I trusted completely with my financial matters. "Georgia, wonderful to see you," he greeted me warmly. "What can I do for you today?" "I need to make some changes, Harold. Significant ones." I proceeded to explain the events of my birthday party and my growing concerns about Amanda's influence over Michael. Harold's expression grew serious as I spoke. I've seen this scenario play out too many times with my elderly clients. He paused, then added, "Not that you're elderly in spirit, Georgia. You've always been one of my most sharp-minded clients." I smiled at his backtracking. "It's all right, Harold. I am 75. But that doesn't mean I'm ready to relinquish control of my life or my assets." We spent the next 2 hours reviewing my estate, which totaled approximately $8 million, including the house valued at $2 million investment accounts, worth $4.5 million and various other assets. Harold presented several options for protecting everything while maintaining my independence. "I want to liquidate most of it, Harold," I said finally. "Not the house yet, but the majority of my investments. I need cash and flexibility." Harold raised his eyebrows but nodded. "It's your money, Georgia. You've earned the right to do what you want with it. Where are you thinking of going?" I smiled. "I'm not entirely sure yet, but somewhere Amanda and Michael can't easily follow." From Harold's office, I went directly to meet with Jessica Thompson, my financial advisor. She was younger than Harold, but equally trustworthy and considerably more tech-savvy. "We'll need to be strategic about this, Georgia," she cautioned after I explained my plan. "Large liquidations can trigger all sorts of alerts. We'll space it out over the next 2 weeks to avoid raising flags." While Jessica began the process of converting my investments to cash, I returned home and opened my laptop. I spent hours researching luxury cruise lines offering world voyages. I finally settled on a 180-day cruise aboard the Silver Whisper, departing in exactly 2 weeks. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The next several days were a flurry of activity. I shopped for a new wardrobe suitable for global travel, purchased luggage, and ordered a new smartphone with international capabilities. I walked through each room of my house, selecting meaningful keepsakes that would fit in my luggage. Photographs of Frank and me in our younger days, the pocket watch his father had given him, and the first dollar we earned in our business, framed on my office wall. For larger items I couldn't take but couldn't bear to leave behind, I arranged secure storage with a company Jessica recommended. I contacted my estate jewelry appraiser to store my most valuable pieces in his vault. With Jessica's help, I set up new banking arrangements, accessible globally, and established a trust for Thomas and Sophie's education that neither Amanda nor Michael could touch. The most difficult task was deciding what to do with the house. After considerable thought, I listed it with a real estate agent who agreed to complete confidentiality. The market was strong, and she assured me we could close quickly with the right buyer. For the furniture and household items I wouldn't need, I arranged donations to a women's shelter that had always been close to my heart. Throughout these preparations, I maintained my normal routine when interacting with Michael and Amanda. I accepted their calls, agreed to their suggestions about looking at senior communities, and never once let on that I had discovered their true intentions or that I was planning my escape. 2 weeks after my birthday, I invited Michael, Amanda, and the twins for dinner at my house. I prepared all of Michael's favorites, just as I used to do when he was a child. Amanda arrived with her usual air of superiority, already talking about some nursing facility they had toured that she thought would be perfect for me. As we sat down to eat, Amanda seemed confused by my calm, almost cheerful demeanor. "Weren't you going to tell your mother about Sunny Pines?" she prompted Michael clearly, eager to continue pushing their agenda. Michael cleared his throat. "Yeah, Mom. We found this really nice place about 20 minutes from our house. They have nurses on staff 24/7, so you'd always have someone checking on you." I smiled and passed the potatoes. "That's very thoughtful, but it won't be necessary. I've made other arrangements." "What arrangements?" Amanda asked sharply, her fork pausing midway to her mouth. "I sold the house," I replied calmly, taking a sip of water. The silence was immediate. Michael's mouth opened and closed several times before he managed to speak. "You what? When? Why didn't you tell us? The sale closes next week." I continued as if discussing the weather. "The new owners are a lovely young couple, expecting their first child. They fell in love with the gardens." But, what about the money?" Amanda stammered her mask of concern, slipping to reveal naked interest. "Where will you live? You should have discussed this with us first. I've liquidated most of my assets as well," I added, watching her face pale. "Approximately $8 million in total. I've always preferred having cash on hand. It provides so many more options, don't you think?" Michael's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "Mom, what are you talking about? What options? You can't just make these kinds of decisions without consulting us. We're your family." "Yes, family," I repeated softly. "The same family that toasted to sending me to a nursing home on my 75th birthday. The same family that has been planning how to spend my money before I'm even gone." Amanda's eyes narrowed dangerously. "That's ridiculous. It was just a joke. You're clearly not thinking clearly. This proves you need supervision." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone, pressing play on a recording I'd made 3 weeks earlier. Amanda's voice filled the room. "We need to get her to sign over power of attorney soon. Once we control her accounts, we can move her somewhere affordable and use the house money for our own place." The voice continued. "I'm tired of waiting for our inheritance while she lives in that mansion alone." Michael looked stricken, his gaze darting between his wife and me. "Mom, I don't know what to say. I never wanted to." "You never wanted to hurt me," I finished for him. "But you stood by and let it happen. You laughed at that toast, Michael." The twins had been quietly eating, but Sophie spoke up. "Grandma, are you going away?" I smiled at my granddaughter, reaching into my jacket pocket for 2 envelopes. "I've created trust funds for both of you for college," I said, handing them each an envelope. "Your parents can't touch this money. It's just for your education." Amanda snatched Sophie's envelope. "This is manipulation. You're trying to turn the children against us." I ignored her and continued addressing my grandchildren. "I'm going away for a while. I'm taking a cruise around the world. I've always wanted to see more of it, and now seems like the perfect time." "A cruise?" Michael looked bewildered. But what about your health? Your vertigo? I pulled out another envelope and slid it across the table. My complete medical records, including a statement from Dr. Lewis, giving me a clean bill of health dated last week. I've never been better. The doorbell rang, announcing Patricia's arrival to drive me to the airport. My bags were already packed and waiting in the foyer. My flight to Barcelona would depart in 3 hours, where I would board the Silver Whisper the following morning. Sophie and Thomas ran to hug me, promising to read all my postcards. Amanda sat frozen at the table, her plans disintegrating before her eyes. Michael followed me to the door, his expression a mixture of shame and regret. "Mom, please." He began, his voice breaking. "I made a mistake. I should have stood up for you." I looked at my son, the little boy I had raised now, a man who had disappointed me deeply. "I hope you learn from this, Michael. I'm not cutting you out of my life, but I am taking control of it. You're welcome to visit me whenever you wish without Amanda." As Patricia drove me away from the home I had shared with Frank, for over 4 decades, I felt an unexpected lightness. Not the weightlessness of age or frailty that Amanda had tried to convince me of, but the lightness of freedom and new beginnings. Standing on the deck of the Silver Whisper as it pulled away from Barcelona the next morning, I watched Spain's coastline slowly recede. My stateroom was a veranda suite on the 8th deck, luxuriously appointed, with a private balcony where I could enjoy morning coffee while watching the Mediterranean glide by. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. The first week was an adjustment. I'd never traveled alone before, always having Frank by my side on our adventures. But I quickly fell into the rhythm of shipboard life. Breakfast on my balcony morning, lectures on our upcoming port's afternoon tea, with new acquaintances and evening concerts or shows. I established a weekly video call with Sophie and Thomas, showing them my surroundings and the fascinating places we visited. Their excitement at seeing the Colosseum in Rome or the ancient ruins in Athens warmed my heart. Patricia kept me updated on the family situation, reporting that Amanda and Michael had frantically contacted Harold and Jessica, trying to locate the full extent of my assets, only to be told that client confidentiality prevented them from sharing any information. As we cruised through the Mediterranean, I found myself becoming part of a community of travelers. There was Elaine from Seattle, a widow like me, taking her first solo journey. James and Robert from London, celebrating their 40th anniversary with this world cruise. And Albert, a retired history professor from Boston, whose quiet intellect and gentle humor reminded me so much of Frank. Albert and I grew closer as the ship sailed through the Suez Canal and into Asian waters. We explored Mumbai's colorful markets together, walked along the Great Wall of China, and marveled at the ancient temples of Japan. On evening 13, as we watched the sunset from the observation deck, he took my hand in his, and I felt a flutter I hadn't experienced in years. I kept a journal throughout the journey, recording not only the sights and experiences, but also my reflections on family aging and independence. After what Amanda did, I could have become bitter and resentful. Instead, this journey taught me that there is always a new chapter waiting, if you're brave enough to turn the page. As the months passed and we cruised through the South Pacific, New Zealand and Australia, I found myself thriving. I took watercolor classes on board, learning to capture the stunning landscapes we visited. I joined a book club that met in the ship's library, engaging in stimulating discussions about literature and life. I even tried Tai Chi on the deck at dawn, finding a new appreciation for the connection between body and mind. In month 5 of the cruise, I made a decision. During our stop in Lisbon, Portugal, I fell in love with the coastal city's charm and vibrant culture. Working with a local real estate agent, I purchased a beautiful 2-bedroom condo overlooking the Atlantic. It would be my new home base, a place to return to between future travels. The hardest part of my journey was maintaining my relationship with my grandchildren from afar. But technology bridged the gap, and our weekly video calls became a cherished ritual. I sent them packages from every major port, filling their rooms with mementos from around the world. I also made arrangements for them to visit me in Portugal the following summer, with or without their parents. By the time the Silver Whisper completed its circumnavigation, 6 months after departure, I was not the same woman who had boarded in Barcelona. I had faced my fears, discovered new passions, made dear friends, and even found a second chance at romance with Albert, who would be visiting me in Lisbon after settling his affairs in Boston. As I prepare to disembark tomorrow and fly to my new Portuguese home, I look back on that humiliating birthday toast with something approaching gratitude. It became the catalyst for the most liberating period of my life. I've learned that, at 75, I'm not just an old lady heading to a nursing home. I'm a woman still capable of adventure, independence, and even love. If there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this: it's never too late to stand up for yourself and change your circumstances. Have you ever had to reinvent yourself later in life? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over adversity. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message of empowerment at any age, share this video with them. Thank you for listening. And remember, the best revenge is living well on your own terms.